Well, Harmy, it's confession time. It's been, I don't know how many weeks since our last discussion about Ollie Pope, but we can catch up now and talk about Harry Brook. Is he set to replace him as vice captain? It's an interesting. I mean, is this the next step in Harry's development to become a all formats coach one day? It does seem. It does seem a little bit harsh on
Yeah.
Ollie Pope, but before you answer that, let's just hear from Brendon McCullum talking about Harry Brook.
He's been fantastic, honestly, for a young captain to take over the role and to remain so authentic to who he is and keep things so simple is fantastic. He's a great bloke. He's got a great cricketing mind in his head, and he's got great connections throughout the group. And I think he's going to do a wonderful job in the role that he's in. And also, when it comes to Test cricket, we know how talented he is. And again, he's a huge player for us in our next little while.
That's Brendon McCullum talking to Sky Sports Cricket, not holding back in his praise of Harry Brook, but well, I mean, he had the opportunity, didn't he, to say that Ollie Pope would be vice captain, and he didn't take it.
Yeah, he did. But I think, and again, I think we referenced it last week, what a great interview that was from Nasser Hussain and Ian Ward. And there was a load of great stuff in there. And I think getting caught up in possibly in the motion, getting caught up in still defining not the squad, but what potentially could be the 11 and the emergence of Jacob Bethel, I think that would be, well, it would have been a bit foolish if Brendon had said, yeah, Ollie Pope's our man, because all of a sudden then you've got to go into that first test match at Perth going, well, we've played no cricket and you've gone from Ollie Pope's being our man to not being in the 11. So I think he was better off saying what he said and the way he said it. I think if Ollie Pope's in the team, I think he stays as vice captain. I think if Ollie Pope's not in the team, then obviously Harry Brook becomes vice captain. I wouldn't be quick to go, right, Ollie, you come out of being vice captain, but you're still bad at 3. I think he's still got a huge. I think Ollie Pope's been a very, very good vice captain to Ben Stokes, and I actually think with Ollie Pope, potentially, if Harry Brook becomes captain, it means Ben Stokes is not playing. If Ben Stokes is not playing, you might find Ollie Pope moving down the order to where he's comfortable batting, and then he still becomes a very, very good vice captain. So I think there would be the sort of things going around in my head if I was making them decisions, that if he's going to bat at number 3 and he plays in the Ashes, there's no reason to change and have, for the sake of having Harry Brook as vice captain. We know who's going to captain England when Ben Stokes is finished, and that's Harry Brook. So leave Ollie as vice captain if he is playing. If he's not playing, well, then the next heir apparent just goes up to vice captain, and it's a natural progression for Harry. So that's the way I would look at it as if I was making a decision, because when Ben Stokes comes out of the team and the captaincy is not his, then for me, Harry Brook becomes captain. But Ollie Pope, I still think he's one of our best 6 batters. I just don't think he's suited to number 3. And he'd be more suited at number 5 or number 6, where there becomes an opening when if Ben's injured or if he's not playing, or if and when his days are numbered. So that would be my assessment of where the vice captaincy is at the minute. While Ollie Pope's in the team, there's no reason for having not to be vice captain. It doesn't mean you have to make him captain when you lose Ben Stokes. So if Ben Stokes plays in the first test match, gets injured and misses Brisbane, then Ollie Pope can still be vice captain and Harry Brook can still be captain. They have a management structure. I think he's a very, very good middle manage, good sounding board. And I think he's been very, very good for Ben Stokes. And I think I'd keep the status quo as it is, and leave him as vice captain for the foreseeable future. Doesn't mean he has to be named captain when it's apparent that Ben Stokes is either going to come out of the team or he gets injured.
There was a time when vice captain was a very specific role. It didn't necessarily mean leader in waiting. Often he was a conduit between the players and the captain and the coach. He was often a senior pro who'd be a metaphorical shoulder to cry on. Do you know what I mean? There were players who were very specifically suited to being the vice captain. rather than captain in waiting.
Yeah, and I think that seems to be Ollie's. I think that's a good role for Ollie Pope. He's a likeable lad. He's a knowledgeable cricketer. He thinks hard. When it comes to, you watch him on the field, we've been fortunate manners where we're in the commentary box and we're watching, we're seeing what people can't see on TV. And Ben talks to him a hell of a lot. He's a short leg. He's normally in front of the wicket when he's fielding, so he sees the angles. He understands the game. Just be nice if he could get a few more runs and knock his average up to get people off his back, because he's a quality player. He's just probably not suited to be at that number 3. But you're right. I think there are some people who are destined to be captains, who are authoritarians, who command respect. That's Ben Stokes. I think Harry Brook he's going towards that way. I don't think he's there yet, and I don't think he will ever be Ben Stokes. Not many are. But Harry, I think, has got that in him. Where Ollie, I think you're right. There are people who are just suited for that middle management role to just make sure that junior players are comfortable and seeing what's going on and looking after them. And you are a good calming influence and sounding board on what is Ben Stokes as a volatile thinker, because he is. I mean, Ben might not thank me for saying that, but he is. He's an emotional thinker. And I think Harry is as well. And I think Ollie, just in between, he's not, and McCullum is as well, to be fair to Brendon. Brendon's he lived life on the edge when he played, and he does when he's coach. And I think a steady hand in the middle. Again, I just wish he scored a few more runs to get people off his back, because I think he'd be a great vice-captain of the England cricket team. Not necessarily captain of the team, but a good vice-captain of the England cricket team throughout his days, because he'd be a good sort of calming influence and sounding point for a captain.
Okay, let's talk spinners now for a moment. Regardless of whether Rehan Ahmed had played for England before, and he hasn't played a test since Rawalpindi, just the fact that he's scored 500s and is averaging 50 and has taken 23 wickets at 19 for Leicestershire should surely put him in line, for at least, for a serious conversation. But indications are that he will be in the squad as the second spinner. And also, what do you make of the murmurings about Will Jacks being a contender? Presumably it's because he's tall.
Yeah.
They want a tall spinner who gets bounce in Australia.
They want a tall spinner. They just get New Balance or Adidas or somebody just to make sort of Asics to make some higher boots and put some things in there, in their shoes to make them, a little trampoline on the end of the thing. I mean, the Will Jacks one, let's get that one out of the way first. As a backup cross batter, if Will Jacks was going, I'd be worried that we're trying to cover bases where thinking Stokes is not 100% fit. I might be putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, because England have to have a plan. Brendon McCullum said on that interview, Sky, that because Wardy asked him, what happens if Ben Stokes is not fit? We have to have a plan. And that plan would be probably Shoaib Bashir out, a spin bowler that can bat. Because Jamie Smith would go at 6. Then you'd have a Will Jacks or a Rehan Ahmed, Liam Dawson type package of batter and spin bowler. And then you'd need, that's why I would take Chris Woakes. Because, replacing Ben Stokes, you probably need 2 or 3 different players to cover, from a runs point of view. And he's over. So I would definitely, there's no question on Rehan. Rehan's going for me. In my squad, I've got written down here, I've got Rehan Ahmed and Shoaib Bashir as the only 2 spinners going. Cox is the spare batter, stroke wicket keeper. Possibly taking Sibley because he's the only opener, I think. It's too early for Emilio Gay. It's too early for Ben McKinney. Tom Haynes, too early. I'm going with Dom Sibley. And I'm taking Archer, Wood, Atkinson, Woakes, Carson, Tong as my bowling options from a seam bowling point of view. And I wasn't going to take Overton, and I wouldn't have took Dawson. Will Jacks, I can see the positives of taking somebody like Will Jacks, because just in case something happens to Ben Stokes. But if you're looking at Will Jacks just playing because he's tall, I mean, you're basically you're not giving a great vote of confidence to Shoaib Bashir, who you invested a lot of time and effort in, and that would be a little bit of a panic selection for me. Other than the fact that we might have to have 2 or 3 all-rounders if Ben's not fit. That would be the only reason I would take someone like Will Jacks.
How many's in your squad? We're not sure when the actual Ashes squad is going to be announced, but how many have you got there? And is there an optimum number? I mean, I'm assuming you can take as many as you like, as long as you pay, over a certain number. I mean, I don't know what that number would be, but you've been part of enlarged squads, and you can have too many, can't you?
You can. The way I'd make up the England touring party, and this is just me, I'd take 17 in a main squad. And then you'd have the Lions who are going simultaneously side by side. I'd have your five identified going reserves. So your spare opening batter, your possible spare wicketkeeper, 2 spare seamers, and your spare spin bowler. So them 5 would go with the Lions. I'd pick 5 youngsters for experience to go with the Lions, and 10 players who I've identified who have had good year and who have been through the Lions program. The likes of Tom Haynes, the likes of Emilio Gay, the likes of Ben McKinney. They would be in that 10. Your 5 that you would go as players who I'd look as backup players. The likes of Dom Sibley, possibly as an opener. Matt Potts as a seam bowling option. I don't think Liam Dawson would go, but if Liam Dawson wouldn't go, I'd go with Will Jacks as your spare spin bowler, or somebody of like that. You've got 4 or 5 youngsters that on my list here that are a must to go for experience with the Lions, and you'd be like Rocky Flintoff, who's had a bit of experience. Rehan Ahmed's had a bit of experience. Young Rue has had a bit of experience. Thomas Rue, I'm talking about for the Lions, and his brother would go as a spare wicketkeeper batter for that 5 that would be as replacements for the full squad. Archie Vaughan, in my opinion, should be going with the Lions. Alex Green, I would like to have a look at in Australian conditions. The big boy the 18-year-old from Leicestershire. Them 5 for me would be a free hit, travelling as the experiment of having, seeing what the Ashes is like, seeing what a touring life's like, and that would be with the Lions squad. And then you have the makeup of your main squad, the likes of your Josh Hulls, your Eddie Jacks, your Mitch Stanleys, your Sonny Bakers, Dylan Pennington, Matt Fisher. I'd be wanting to have him on the Lions trip. And then your batters, you got likes of Tom Haynes, Ben McKinney, Emilio Gay, Tom Banton, James Rue, Max Holden. These are the names I've got on the Lions list, who I don't think are anywhere near ready for international cricket. But there might be in 2 years' time when Australia come to England, and I'd like them to sample and see what's going on. I think the main 17-man England squad picks itself. That's providing that Chris Woakes for me is fit, because he's got to go.
Tell you what, Harmy, by the time you've selected your Ashes squad and your Lions squad, you're going to be unlucky if you're an England cricketer not going to Australia.
Absolutely. Yeah. But they've got to take a lot. They're playing against each other. I think I would take a lot of cricketers into, just for experience, into Australia, because the Lions can play a lot of cricket. They're going to play a game at Lilac. Apparently they're playing a game at Lilac Hill. I spoke to Neil Killeen the other day. Game at Lilac Hill. They've got a game up at Brisbane. They've got a game against England. They've got cricket over there. But the experience of Andrew Flintoff, Graham Swan, Neil Killeen, for me, what else are they going to be doing in England? It's freezing cold. They're going to watch it in the middle of the night. Get them over there. Have the experience. You've just sold the 100. You've got a few quid in your pocket. Make sure there's 4 or 5 young cricketers who you think in 2 or 3 Ashes' time are going to be the mainstay of the team. Keezy knows this because Keezy went through that system like he did. He went on 2-year tours like I went on. We went on the National Academy. And that group that went on the National Academy were the group that went through 2003, 4, 5 when England was strong. Build it like that. Fletcher had the plan like that with the selectors. And I think, for me, that's the way I would go. for the next generation of the England cricket team to come through.
One of the worst jobs on tour historically has been reserve wicketkeeper. So Baz did actually confirm in that interview that you mentioned that Pope would be the reserve wicketkeeper, but it's not as if they, you need to spend a month on a boat getting to Australia. If they decide to change course and they need a spare wicketkeeper, if Jamie Smith is injured, they can just fly one over. But Pope will start as the reserve keeper.